Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Great having you guys coming back here, and I appreciate you all from the bottom of my heart. Now, without a shadow of doubt, it's on the weekend. We just started to rain here, but why not? Again, take a bit of time out, bring a few watches out there, out here, put on the patio, just enjoying what we have in front of us, guys. Okay, I think one thing that I sort of learned lately is the more time that we spend on the screen looking at what other people's have in terms of their watch collection, the less credit that we're giving to our own collection. And again, that applies to one watch collector, to watch collector that only has 5 or 6 watches, or you're just in the beginning of your collection journey, just like myself, or applies to a seasoned collector that collect watches all the way from vintage to watches that wears thousands if not tens of thousands of dollars of watches. Okay, I mean, in the end of the day, the only thing that we can pursue is the true happiness of our own collection, because there's no end to it. um, the moment you start buying watches over 500, you think about, wow, that's where I will stop. And sooner or later, if you got sucked into this hobby, as we know, that you'll be looking at spending thousands on a watch, right? And by the time that you spend $1,000 on the watch, you promise yourself you're not going to buy another one worth $1,000, and you know what? You'll be collecting more watches, and when you add them up, there will be sums of tens of thousands of dollars in your collection. And by that time, you think you're done. No, because the hobby, that desire, will keep you going. Then you add another couple $1,000 pieces on the board, and maybe then you'll be looking at adding, watches that worth a different price tier towards what we have. And then the really, there's no end to the ball game, right? You think about people owning Omega Speedmasters, Seamasters, people owning much more expensive watches that what I currently have. Let's say Rolexes, Explorer, Sky Dweller, Submariner, you name it. But in their desire, in their heart, they will be probably looking at selling them and getting a different price here altogether. Get overseas version Constantin, or probably get an AP, get a Patek. Here's the thing, guys. That's the thing. We gotta focus our strength and our energy on what we have, and treat them as your friend. Wear them seriously. Swap it up. 3 4 different watches in a day. You know what? You get to wind them. You get to do. You get to do adjust the time, and because the time reserve that you have on your watches, if you go through 3 4 5 watches in a day, and you know what, you at least give them about a couple hours or 3 hours on your wrist on daily basis, or a couple of days, that power reserve will be relatively full, right? Then you literally act yourself with your wrist as a time winder, right? As a watch winder, right? But of course, without the way, as you guys see, the watches that I right now have in front of me, I've got SKX right there. I've got a King Samurai here, a King Turtle. We've got a 62 mass and the Willard interpretation, right? We've got the Willard, the green Willard. And the topic today is after 3 years of collecting and understanding and knowing the brand, I'm really proud of where the brand is going. I understand there's a lot of critics, and including myself, in terms of quality control, in terms of that they are duplicating, they are making a lot of variations towards their watches, and sort of dilute of it's just simply too many, right? And their time accuracy, it's all over the place, right? We've got, for example, we've got this 7S. This 7S is running about 10 seconds slower a day, and then you have the 6R35 running about 25 seconds a day slower. This one's doing what, about 5 or 8 seconds faster a day. This one's doing what, about 4 seconds faster. This one's about 15 seconds faster. So again, you've got 4Rs, you've got 7S's, and you've got 6Rs. They're all over the place. There's no guarantee that the 4R is not running as well, is running less than a 6R. And there's no guarantee that the 7S is going to perform any less than the others. They're all over the place, guys. I'm going to tell you this, right? That's the reason why, by their requirement, they list their factory time variance between, those many seconds in a day, between 20 to 45 seconds or faster, right? There's a reason for that. But again, at the same time, I've got 4 hours that's running literally dead on every single day, right? But today's topic is about, again, one, I'm feeling proud of what I've been collecting over the last 3 years, and I really think we, especially after the pandemic, I think the brand is hitting a lot of goals. And I think was the result of their hard work. Of course, a lot of watch brand out there is working really, really hard. Whether they are competing with the Seikos at this particular price range. Of course, Seiko, Grand Seiko, they'll go up the way to tens of thousands of dollars. We're not talking about them at this stage. But with what I have, I think they're killing it, guys. So I'm gonna do this as numbers for you. If you are collectors, if you like to add pieces in your collection, have really, really good value retention, you want to have all in-house with the brand heritage and history really gonna last for the many, many years to come with their innovations and technology advancement, you gotta go with the Seiko. At least you're gonna have experience of owning them, because with what they're doing now, I think they're killing it. So I think they're doing really, really well with their strategy, and they are smashing their competitors. I'm gonna just tell you the truth how I feel about them, and I'll explain to you in a minute. I think under 2000, they are dominating the space. So under 2000, what I mean by that is, see the time of SKXs of 200, 250, 300 brand new, they are history, and we love history. That's why you don't see SKXs depreciating. You see them increasing in value, for at least retaining its value really, really well. It's because in the long term, we don't associate, as human being, we don't associate with just in the material value on the surface. We truly appreciate the story and the heritage and the history of each material goods. That's who we are. Alright? You can try to neglect that, you can try to see that's not the truth, but over the next many, many years, I'm telling you guys, the SKX will be worth a couple grand at least in about 10-20 years. And if, to be honest, guys, just from an investment perspective, like I talked about this before, right? If you got a couple hundred, maybe $1,000 laying around, every time, I'm telling you guys, right? I'll probably get to do it probably soon. I've got the 009, I'm about to get an 011. But if you can snatch, of course, it's got to be all original. Okay, there are so many SKXs out there with aftermarket parts. If you can get a one with box tag, of course, we'll talk about those old stocks, right? With manuals, with Seiko boxes, and preferably as new as you can. Just keep buying them. Set up a budget up to $350 each. You spend, $2 grand. You can buy 6 SKXs. I can guarantee in 20 years it'll be worth 10 grand altogether. As long as the watch industry is still going, people still appreciate mechanical. I'm not saying Apple Watch is not good. I bought my wife an Apple Watch. Excellent piece, right? Fantastic battery life, everything you name it from technology standpoint, monetary health. But people, as we are, we love mechanical stuff. If smartwatch has advantage over emotional attachment towards us, those mechanical watches will be dead. Seiko as a brand will be dead by then, right? By now. Now, moving along, we've got the King's versions here, which really, I think they've done extremely well. So, SKX is the history. The history tells us we love stories, we love designs, we love heritage, we love what's being remembered in the past. And see, people always appreciate the past when the past is long gone. And the history just repeats itself again and again and again. So Seiko, by learning the story of that, I think Seiko has done extremely well. So remember what I said before. I think Seiko's is smashing anything under $2,000 US. Is they're making those King versions with sapphire crystal, with ceramic bezel. Of course, these turtle is based on the spirit of 6306, 6309. Not to mention the prices of those mint or original 6306, 6309 are towards $700, $900, right? First of all, they're very hard to come by because the supply is limited and the demand is increasing. So there's no wonder those 6306, 6309 will hit over $1,000 anytime very soon. I'm telling you guys. And Seiko knows that. So what they do is they very carefully chose the turtle. The previous SRP turtle reissues they started making about 7 years ago. They sold tons of them, okay? But with Seiko's current strategy, they know if they wanna make more profit, if they wanna bring their price tier, just like how the Grand Seiko is doing, they need to change their strategy and the board game. They need to have icons. All right, I'm gonna repeat that. A success of a brand, they need to have iconic watches. Back in the days, this is the go-to watch on the 500, on the 400, you name it, right? Back in the days. Now, they need to go to watches under $1,000. Again, we're talking about a retail price here. Those retail prices are around about $500, right? This is Asian exclusive model. Of course, this one's more expensive. This is King Turtle. They need to have icons under 1,000. And in order to achieve that market share, they need to have a recipe with success. And that recipe, in my eyes, are three things. Number one, unshakable design. And from a design perspective that people can resonate. And it has resonated for the last 40, 50 years and will keep resonating with. Just like the SKXs. So they chose Turtle. And Samurai, of course, was when the whole line of Samurai started about 20 years ago, 23, 24 years ago. There's been stopped about production about 7, 8 years. But now they're doing really well, right? So Seiko needs to have iconic watches under $1,000 that if any consumer in today's market, whether they're a Seikoholic like us, like myself, or they're looking to add a very quality mechanical pieces with divers on the, we'll call it ISO divers or not, they know those kings are the ones to consider first, and they're smashing them. Not to mention the retail price is between that 500 to 600. Again, I quote it on the grand. But the street price of this can be easily had around that 450. This one probably 450. This one probably is slightly higher, probably 650 again. There are many versions and variants of the kings, of the samurai and turtles you can choose from. Alright, so unshakable design and storyline, and they have it. Second thing they gotta do with that recipe with success is specs. You gotta make sure the watch is finishing extremely well. And guys, I had microbrands in the past costing between $500 to $600, and they're great. But at the same time, with knowing what the microbrands are doing in that price tier, I'm telling you guys that a $450 of street price for the King's version, for example, this turtle here, which is finishing, the ability to have those brushing and changes throughout design, the bezel grip, of course the insert is ceramic, plus the sapphire crystal. I don't know what to say, guys. I'm just gonna say this, alright? You guys can judge me wrong if you want. But was this a street price of $450? Microbrands has got no chance. I mean, microbrands selling 500, selling based on sapphire crystal, ceramic, and NH35. King Turtle has 10 times much more than that to offer. With, of course, the undeniable reliability among enthusiasts in the watch community. Microbrands got no chance against this. Of course, you can try out microbrands as you want, but under 500, this King Turtle and King Samurai, they smash any microbrand that come close to it. As a diver, of course, you gotta like the shape of it, the design of the history of it. So the success recipe is really working. You have unshakable design that people can resonate with and love the story and design language. And you have the spec and the finishing, the sapphire crystal and ceramic bezel. You have it all, guys. So under $1,000, and how accessible they are, how many different choices you can kind of vary in the quality of the Seiko services and brand reputation. How can you fight a watch that has all this under $1,000? You name it. I really can't find them, seriously. Anything that I like is gonna go way beyond $1,000, right? So under $1,000, with all in house, with history, with its warranty. Of course, if you buy a brand new from Boutique, you're probably not looking at any discounts. But unbelievable, guys. Under $1,000, no competitors. I'm gonna just say that, right? Of course, you can have your favor against the other brand, but just in my eyes, with its design and with its long-term relevance, under $1,000 they are dominating, and they've made that switch and transition really well. Again, from SKXs in the old days of the SRP turtles and the second generation of the samurais. Again, the SRP turtles can be very collectible in the future, especially the black one, the SRP 777. So under $1,000, they are smashing it, dominating it, and I think they know that, and they are keep doing that. So job well done. And at the same time, Seiko was very this company, of course, knowing what it has created and innovated. They not only they are ambitious as ever. So what they choose to do, from all the way up to the executive manager level of the brand, they go, okay, you guys know, consumer know that we're dominating with 200, 300 watches, and of course anything Seiko 5s and all that. And now we know we can dominate on the brand. But guys, we gotta find a way to dominate in the $2,000 space. So between a grand, again, we'll talk about retail price. I understand street prices in the mint condition of the secondary market is going to be more affordable, but we gotta find a way to dominate the space under 2 grand. And of course, they've been doing that. They've been trying to do that for the last few years, to be honest. Okay, and with that, they are keeping their strategy, as I call the success recipe, extremely crystal clear. That recipe's got to achieve a couple things. Again, number one, they have to pick up the design language and the story based on its vintage history inspired spirit very well. Guys, they could have charging customers more, us more on the 6306 and 6309 by simply putting it on a different market tier, but they didn't. What they've done, of course, didn't choose the 611 or 616, 619. They've chose the 610, 6105, as we know, the Willard. Okay, and this, of course, without saying, this is the first divers watch, the 62 mass. They've done it all the way back to 1965. So between a grand and 2 grand, under 2 grand, they've chosen the blueprint, and I think they've done extremely well on that decision. They didn't make more product based on those design languages. They've chosen the other two to explore the market. And they ask themselves, okay, in order to differentiate the price on a grand to price between, on a 2 grand, what things do they need to do? Okay. Then they go to the second point of the success recipe, that I call it. They need to give it better finishing. They need to give it better crystal. They need to give it better construction. And I think they've achieved that in abundance. Of course, not just talking about the hard coding here, but anything in relation to the King versions are great. But the moment you hold on those SPB line, the 62 mass and Wheeler, you're holding something at extreme quality with this price asking. Of course, you can then go to a further level of the SLA in the future, but again, I'm not talking about those watches here right now. I'm talking about the topic of they are smashing, they are dominating on the 2 grand. So they've given those watches sapphire crystal. They've kept the design language to a very faithful way, and in the same time to give us dimensions that suits an everyday wrist of 7 inches. So both, this is about 41 millimeter diameter. This one is about 42.5. So it's very similar to the SKS, of course, with the cushion shell design. And in the same time, they've just very tastefully chosen the indices and the handset. Actually, those two handset looks very similar, except that second hand. So they've given a sapphire crystal. Of course, the Kings now have the sapphire crystal as well, right? So excuse me, I forgot to mention that. But the finishing on those, the bezel action, the quality of the dial, it is wonderful under 2 grand. So they really found a recipe under the $2,000 mark. That's how I believe it. So we've got the Wheelers here. This is the 62 mass. Wow, this bezel is just as crisp as the one. The most expensive bezel of so far that I've turned was the GMT Black Bay by Tudor, and the bezel is fantastic on these guys. This is not a quarter feeling of that what the GMT is. it just done really well. Okay, and again, I'm asking myself, if I'm not buying, if not spending between 1 to 2 grand on those watches, what are their competitors, guys? Seriously, I mean, unless I'm not buying those two, I'm not buying the. So this is about a grand. It's brand new. This is about about 1,200. So about 2 grand altogether. What else am I gonna buy? Of course, I can probably sell one and save a bit more. Get a Squale, right? Squale is not priced here, right? About 1,500. It's just below. Depends on the discount that you get from ADs. But Squales are great. They look great, but they don't look. Again, just in my eyes, they don't look original enough. I understand they have a long history back in the 1950s, which is divers heritage, but they just don't look. This I can tell what people's wearing with Seikos from 2 meters apart. I just can tell from the shape and design. They've really cracking the code of the divers in my eyes. And what else are you gonna buy, right? I can sell those two, and probably have to sell another 1 or 2 of those to get a second-hand, mint condition. What do you call that brand again? I can get a Doxa, which has got its own heritage, which has got a cushion shell, what do you call that, sub T300, sub T200. Great watches, I'm sure they are, right? It looks brilliant, especially the orange one. Love it. But again, they're not in the same price tier. They cost way more than them, right? Or I can get a daily wear by selling those two, maybe add another couple $100, depends on bracelet, the straps again. I get a Sing. Is it Sing 145? You know that daily, the German Sing. I've got a model number, right? There's a black one that looks brilliant, of course. The black one, right? I can get a Sing, but then again, not even in the same price tier. I'm sure Sings are very well known, very highly collectible. People resonate with the design and all that because it's very well known history, many years. But again, I just don't think under the 2 grand. If you guys like what you have, you like what you see, you've got limited amount of money on the two. There's not a single brand that can Tissot, right? You can get a PRX for probably you can probably keep $100 cash if you do a trade. But PRX, again, great history. Tissot has done it in the past, but it's not a diver. It's daily wear. It's got a lot longer power reserve compared to those King versions. And again, I give the fact, right? So if you're looking at PRX's Powermatic 80, they are in the same price here, probably even a bit less than those, right? But they're not divers. They're not the same demographics, right? What are the brands that you can think of, right? I can sell both of them at a couple $100. I can buy Longines. What do you call that? Like a skiing diver, compressor diver, right? They're great watches, but again, not in the same price tier. And they're all in-house, guys. Everything about the watch is made by the same spirit of the team, the culture. You gotta understand that from a company perspective, it is very hard to do. Think about your own employer, right? Think about, doesn't matter what profession that you guys in. You guys in the manufacturing business, you guys in the product and service business, you guys in the financial providers business, you guys in the government. They're just for accompanying a group of people to do great things in today's market, it's very difficult unless you have extraordinary amount of resources and experience behind your name. You can't make those watches. It's impossible from a manufacturing standpoint and quality control perspective. So guys, I know I've been banging about this for a little while now. You guys know this is my best brands, and especially with the value intention. If you can pick them up at a mint condition from used market with full box and full paper, you can't lose money on those watches, seriously, because the demand and supply perspectives, we know, even though the Seiko is making them more, but you gotta understand, for those clean dials, because they want to keep pumping up new watches with different texturized dials now. For those clean 62 mass early variation without the 3 o'clock loom on both of those, guys, you get them up. If you can buy them, I'm telling you guys, right? If you can get about 30% off of retail of getting those two watches, and you can enjoy the heck out of them. And even if you're selling one day, you're really not going to lose a lot of money on it. I can guarantee. That's because the watch community and hobbyists is telling the brand that we love what you guys doing. Alright, so guys, this is all my credits to the brand. Of course, if you ask me what things they could have done better, they know what they're doing. Alright, this brand surely know what they are doing. Better quality control. Of course, they have probably one of the very stringent quality control overall in the watch industry. I can know that for a fact. But yeah, Get the bezel lineup, be better. That all of those watches, the SKX is the only one that sort of missing, you know, about half a click off. What else they can do, guys? Tell me, what else do you think Seiko can do on that $2,000? From a retail price perspective, what products should they make? What things should they be adding on their products? I don't really know, guys. To be honest, if I work for Seiko as a senior manager, if someone asks me that question, I don't know what to do. Maybe, I mean, surely the 4 eyes are great. Maybe add a bit more power reserve on those. Get a time accuracy. Get them all regulated to do a bit better. But then again, if they're not regulating the 8-hour movements on a Marine Master 300 that has retail price over 4,000, they're not gonna regulate those. Forget about it, guys. It's silly. They're not gonna do it. So what they're gonna do? I mean, think about this, right? Tell me, what do you think the brand can do to enhance its values on the true brand? I think they are maxing the whole market out. They are smashing all their competitors, and they are doing really, really well. But that's all, guys. Okay, hope you guys enjoying great weekends. If you guys in Northern Hemisphere, you're probably about to wake up. And no doubt, I'll see you guys in the next video. Okay, guys, take care. Bye, bye, guys.